Grace, peace, and welcome to Podcast of the Wills, a podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. And I am your host, Nick Milkey, and we are hanging out on a Sunday night for the second weekend of our Canon Studies series. And as I talked about before last week, this is kind of the original way the podcast started, was digging into the Star Wars movies, basically doing a Bible study, but instead of using the Bible study, using Star Wars as our sacred text. So we're doing that again tonight. We're going to continue in Empire Strikes Back. We've got a great theme of retreat that I'm excited to talk about. But before we get to that, I do have two quick housekeeping items that I wanted to get into. The first one is t-shirts. I'm not going to spend a long time talking about t-shirts. It's TeePublic. There's bunches of them, four. The links are on the internet, Twitter. I'll post them again at some point. I don't think they're on sale this weekend. Love for you to go buy a t-shirt, get some logoed mess, whatever. That's fine. That's fun and games. But something that I would much rather spend this little bit of time talking about is an exciting announcement and something that I and this show are honored to get to be a part of. And that is Potathon 2021. And this is happening on November the 6th, which is a Saturday. And this is being hosted by Pete from Around the Galaxy and my friend Scotty J-Rowe from the Bombag Cast. And along with Podcast of the Wills, we're going to spend an entire Saturday podcasting, talking about Star Wars, and doing it all for the benefit of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is a truly, truly worthy organization to support. And I want to just add even a personal note and a shout out to one of my best friends, Matt, who lives here in town. His daughter, Violet, is a Make-A-Wish child, and Violet has been selected for Make-A-Wish, and at some point they're going to get to participate with Make-A-Wish with Violet's Wish. And so I love my friends Matt and Violet and his wife Mandy and their son Josiah. So Make-A-Wish is just super important to me because I have people who are directly affected and blessed by Make-A-Wish. So I think this is a truly amazing cause to support, and I'm so thankful to get to be a part of it as Podcast of the Wills. Like I said, this is going to happen on Saturday, November 6th. It's going to start at 9 in the morning Eastern time, and it's going to go till 9 or 10 or 11. Who knows how late it'll go? It's going to be like old school Jerry Lewis, telethon on TV. We may have to figure out how to do the tote board, whatever it is. At some point, somebody will just be smoking on TV like they used to do. I don't know. That may not happen. But it's going to be great. And there are so many amazing shows that are involved in this. Tarkin's Top Shelf, Tatooine Sons, Star Wars Explained, the Imperial Senate Podcast, Blue Bantha Milk Co., Holochronicles, Pink Milk, Broaxium, Space Waffles, which is a part of the Geeky Waffle Network, Beyond the Blast Doors Live, and Force Connect. These are all shows that I love. They're friends of mine. They all do such great things and have such great content. And we are going to have so much fun on that Saturday doing fun Star Wars things, all to benefit charity. I know the Star Wars community is a tight one. It's one that rallies around people and is very supportive. And so I'm excited to get to spend a day at the beginning of November doing that for such a worthy cause as Make-A-Wish. So I hope y'all will follow Potathon on Twitter, start looking out for more announcements. I know all of these shows are working very hard to come up with really exciting guests and segments and bits and all these kinds of things. I actually have something really exciting in the works for my show that day. I can't talk about it yet, but I'm working on it. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm asking the Force to help will it into being. So November 6th, Potathon. It's going to be a great time, and it's going to be a great time for a very worthy charity. So I truly hope y'all will be able to check that out. And you'll be hearing more about it in the coming weeks because it's still a few weeks away, still time to plan, still time to, see what other exciting parts of that are going to take place and what's going to happen. So tonight, Canon Studies Episode 2, Volume 2. Volume sounds good. Volume sounds very academic. We are digging in. We have another amazing guest tonight. Last week, we had Andy from the Holochronicles podcast who came on, and we talked about what was the theme last week? Friendship. Yeah, friendship. Because Han said, my friend is out in it. Luke was out trapped in the storm. This week, our theme is retreat. We are in Empire Strikes Back as well. Continuing in Empire Strikes Back, we started at the 18-minute and 15-second marker, and we went all the way to like almost 36 minutes. It was a huge chunk of movie. And so when I have a huge chunk of movie, I don't have any choice but to bring in a movie guy to help me break this down and talk about it. So I am thrilled to welcome back my good friend Michael Nipp, who is the host of the Deucecast movie show, one of the hosts of the Deucecast movie show. Michael, what is up, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, Nick? So happy to be asked to come into a space that I'm not generally in, which is the Star Wars podcasting space. So,
That's right. And let's talk about that for a minute, because you were on with me. It's been several months back now.
Yeah.
And did the regular version of the show. We counted down your personal top 7 Star Wars collectibles, which was an amazing list. And if I remember correctly, the number 1 is the quilt that your mom made for you.
Yes.
It was made out of Star Wars t-shirts? Is that right?
It was a bunch of my old Star Wars t-shirts. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And let's talk about Star Wars t-shirts for a minute, because I was organizing my closet today.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out I have 14 Star Wars t-shirts at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
And I know there are people who have plenty more than I do, but I had a moment where I thought I need my friends that have content that make podcasts for their shows to quit coming up with great t-shirts, because every time they do, I buy one. Or the other side of that double-edged sword is every time I go to Five Below, there's another $5 Star Wars t-shirt. And I'm going to have to say, Five Below has kind of delivered with Star Wars t-shirts. In fact, this isn't Five Below, but this is my Around the Galaxy old school logo t-shirt. So representing Pete and Around the Galaxy tonight. But do you have any handle on how many Star Wars t-shirts you think you have?
Well, I mean, before the quilt, I had at least 30. Now, after the quilt, I was down to 10, but now I'm back up to like 20. Just because, I mean, some guy made a shirt that said Dad Batch, and so I had to get that.
Yeah, what kind of jerk would do that?
I know, for real. But yeah, I mean, they just seem to, and as gifts, people just give them to you as gifts, because you can find them at places like Five Below for $5. And
correct. So it's an easy grab.
As gifts, it's just, it's crazy.
I like that. Well, I wondered as I sorted through mine, and as I was kind of folding and separating them, I thought, have I crossed the line where I have more Star Wars t-shirts than other t-shirts? And I'm not completely there yet. And as an adult who goes to work most days of the week, I don't wear nearly as many t-shirts as I have. And usually when I do, I grab the same few. So I try to make it a habit of, especially on a show night, rotating. This one from Around the Galaxy is new. I have a new Bomb Bag Cast shirt that I'm excited to wear maybe next week. So they've got to get a good rotation in, but I also can't abandon things like my Auburn t-shirt or, the bar here that I like. So it's just a matter of, what shirt happens and fits at the right time. So movies, let's talk movies for a few minutes, because that's your deal. And like you said, I'm glad you're here to talk some we get to do Star Wars, which is not what you always do. Although I feel like you've done more here lately, thanks to the offerings from Disney Plus with the Deucecast Extra, your show that you do on Tuesday nights. And being able to cover things like you were doing Bad Batch, which I was lucky enough to come on with y'all a couple of times and talk about Bad Batch. We've got Visions coming up this week, which I'm excited about. And I think I get to come talk about that next week.
You do, sir.
And so we are going to do Star Wars and give you that relief that you don't always get, but we got to make you earn a little bit of your supper here. So,
all right.
Let's talk movies, and let's talk about the fact that there are major awards happening tonight. Now, they're not necessarily movie awards.
Yeah.
The Emmys are going on tonight, correct?
Yes, sir. They are.
What have you seen? What are your awards hopes for the Emmys this year? What are some things? Who did you like to see win? What's a show you'd like to get something? Give us some Emmy thoughts to start out tonight.
Well, I mean, I selfishly wanted, WandaVision to win some awards. I mean, that's such a fun show. Personally, as far as shows that I have watched this past year that I thought were good, Mayor of Easttown, which was a show on HBO, and it has already won a lot of awards. And so that's doing well. And I haven't had a chance to watch this Ted Lasso thing yet, but it is winning quite a few awards this evening as well. So I need to change that, and I need to watch some Ted Lasso. It's become one of those things where, since everybody else is watching it, I kind of don't want to watch it.
I understand.
But,
I hover in those lanes
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. But
Um,
in all seriousness, I do want to watch that show. It's one that I need to watch for sure.
This is what I'll say about Ted Lasso. I watched the first season and loved it.
Yeah.
The second season came out, I think, the week after my free year of Apple TV Plus expired. So I haven't borrowed a login from a friend who has offered me one yet to watch the second season.
Yeah.
But I would like to. And I will say, too, because back this summer when we were trying to think of something to watch, I told Laura that she needed to watch it because we watch shows together a good bit. And as I was like, well, let me show you the trailer for it. The trailer for Ted Lasso, at least the one that I showed her probably on YouTube, was the least indicative of that show of any trailer I've ever seen. Like, she just looked at me and she's like, why do you think I'd like this? And I was like, but you don't like, it's so wholesome and he's so nice. And like, it really is a great show.
Yeah.
And so at some point I've got to get her back to that. But we talk about shows, and I do want you to watch Ted Lasso, but there's something else that I need you to finish watching first, and that's The Sopranos.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
But here's what we need to talk about movies, because yes, there are TV shows that you want to watch. Yes, there are, the Emmys are on tonight, and we have some things that you have made time for, whether it was the Marvel shows, Mando, that kind of stuff. But you undertook something this year that I am very impressed by, and I want you to talk about that for a few minutes, because this was not insignificant by any means. Tell us the challenge you set for yourself and talk about how it went.
Yeah, first of all, I'll never do it again. So that's first of all, I want to lay that out there. But just because of the pandemic, I mean, and we just had a bit more time at the house. I felt like maybe this year I could pull off 365 new to me movies. And that's very important distinction.
Absolutely.
Because in the midst of that, I also did a complete rewatch of the MCU films with my 10-year-old daughter, which really made it quite difficult to get to what my actual goal was, which was 365 new to me movies by August 31st.
Right.
Now, because I don't like to fail at goals, I did it. I made it happen. I figured out a way to make it happen. I found it a bit easier than I thought it was going to be. Now, part of that is because I don't sleep. I stay up quite late. And so I'm watching a lot of movies late at night after the kids go to bed, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
And working off of a couple different lists. So I worked off the AFI list, the American Film Institute list, just to watch, quite a few of those movies that I had not seen, American classics that I had not seen. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, probably my favorite out of all of the new to me older stuff that I watched.
Okay.
And then I started working through the best picture list, a lot of the best pictures, the older ones that I hadn't seen. And so I found that setting mini goals within the 365 actually worked well. And that's almost like, a life lesson. Set mini goals, and you can actually accomplish things a little bit easier than you think you're going to when you see a daunting task like 365 new movies to me. So, yeah, I mean, right now I'm in like 380 now just by watching 2021 releases, because at this point I'm kind of not focusing on anything old. I'm just doing the new stuff. Hosting a movie podcast, I do have to keep up with the new films. So I am doing a lot of that. And I'm probably going to end up over 400 this year, which
that's amazing.
Is insane to think about the amount of content that is.
It's a lot of content consumption, no doubt.
Yes, it is.
And it's impressive. And I've kept up because as I listen to the Deucecast and as we've talked, you'll give updates, pretty regularly. I'm at this, I'm at that. And, and even having some things in front of you, I was giving you grief about The Sopranos earlier. And, part of your thing and several other people in your Discord chat were like, you need to watch this, you need to watch that. And you're like, I have to get these 365 movies done.
Right.
But then it becomes, you've got to kind of look at the schedule, what's coming out. You had mentioned at one point hoping to watch Sopranos before Many Saints of Brooklyn comes out, which that may not happen at this point. I don't know.
No, it won't. I'm not even through season 1, man.
But you also have, we've got Yellowstone on the horizon. We've got these other things to be excited about that will, take up some time in your watching. But 365 movies new to you, and that is an important distinction. That's a huge accomplishment. And so at this point, have you completed the main AFI 100?
Oh, I am done with the AFI 100. The
Okay.
Best Pictures is a bit more difficult just because a lot of those actually aren't available to stream on a free service. Now, I could certainly rent all of them if I was that invested in doing that,
Sure.
but I just am at a point now where I made the 365, so I have moved on with my life. I'll eventually watch those because I'm, in all honesty, only about 10 away from completing the Oscar list as well. And
Okay.
I'll get to that, but once I hit 365, I'm like,
Yep. All bets are off.
all bets are off. I'm focusing on 2021 releases and a lot of the TV shows that I want to keep up with, which, like you said,
Absolutely.
Yellowstone's coming. It's got a sequel or a prequel series coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's just too much. There's too much content, really, in all
Yeah,
honesty.
we have a
in
bounty
general.
of TV and movie riches to be excited about and looking forward to. Well,
most
I
definitely.
think that's amazing, and I love movies, and we'll have times when I'll listen to the Deuce Cast, and y'all will do like a somebody's 5 something or whatever.
Yeah,
and half the time I end up messaging you afterwards. This is what my 5 would be, because I feel
Right.
like these are the conversations that I'm having in my head as I'm listening to you talk about it, or when somebody can't come up with the name of an actor or somebody, I'm like, it's so, and I'm saying it out loud while I'm listening to you, which means I'm engaged in the show and enjoying, trying to figure out, how do I feel about this category, or what is this movie, or what would my 5 be? So if anybody is not listening to the Deuce Cast, you have to go subscribe. And we're going to talk more about the Deuce Cast at the end of the show, but I'm going to save that little exciting tidbit for plugs and wrap ups. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pivot into our Canon study. And as I did last week, it seemed only appropriate that I light up my Luke Skywalker on a tauntaun candle, set the, pseudo iconography spiritual mood here. So he's going to come back here. He's going to sit on the Star Wars trilogy box set.
Nice.
Hopefully he won't fall over and, burn my garage down. Little things like that. So Michael, tonight we are talking about the theme of retreat, and in the clip, in our canon text, as it were, we start at 18 minutes, 15 seconds. And this is where we left off last week. They've just gotten done having the very famous and classic pseudo confrontation in the medical bay. Luke's recovering from his adventure out with the tauntaun and the wampa. Leia kisses Luke, to spite Han and, do that whole deal. And then the voice comes over the intercom, ships are entering the atmosphere. Something's happening. The rebels are in trouble.
Yeah.
So then where we get carried through this entire next clip, and like I said, it was a big clip compared to some of our other, the way we break the movie down, but we get some of the best filmmaking maybe of all time, but certainly filmmaking and scenes that are so iconic in my life, not only as Empire Strikes Back being my favorite movie, being my favorite Star Wars movie, but we get the Hoth battle scene. Like that's a part of what we watch here. And so we get the walkers, and we get, those first long distance wide shots of these big lumbering, and then that clunking metal sound as they're just, slow, inevitable death chunking towards the rebels. Yeah. What are your overall thoughts about this clip that we watched before we kind of get into some of our leading questions?
Yeah, I mean, this clip is obviously a clip I've seen hundreds of times in my life. It's got some of my just favorite throwaway lines ever. Like, good, our first catch of the day. Love it. I mean, I love that simple line from an Imperial scum just talking about getting a rebel. It's just awesome. Nice shot, Jansen. I love nice shot, Jansen. I don't know why I like it. I love that line. I mean, absolutely iconic. And then would it help if I got out and pushed? I mean,
it might.
This like 20 minutes or however long it was has some of the best lines ever. And I had forgotten this is the clip that we hear the last words from Major Derlin. He has a quick line in there. I had completely forgotten that was him. And it was, we hear him in there. That would be a good Star Wars trivia question. Like, what are the last 2 words that Major Derlin says. I think something like "Let's go" or something like that, or something along those lines. So this has so much packed into it, and the moment between Luke and Han, when Han is on top of the Millennium Falcon, that look that Han gives Luke just shows how good Harrison Ford is. He's just phenomenal as an actor, and people do not give that guy credit. They think of him as the carpenter, the guy that just came in. He's just like the blue collar actor, but the dude is legitimate with just his facial expressions. Can emote so much in just a quick moment, and I just love when he's looking down at Luke in that one moment when he has that nervous look on his face. Because of the unknown, right? And so it's great. It's such a
it's all unknown.
You gave me like the best time in this movie. One of the best times. Empire's got everything, but
yes, Empire absolutely has everything. But you're right, it's so good and it's so classic, and and I was watching it, even spotting the things that then I see recycled and not recycled, but even paid homage to, like in the sequel trilogy, like when they're setting up for the Hoth attack and the Empire is inbound and all those foot soldiers and infantrymen are in the trenches and they're, setting the guns and all that stuff. That had very Crate feel to it when they're in those trenches on Crate. Of course, the white backdrop, makes it feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
I love those, certainly with Rian Johnson, some of those filmmaking, homages that he threw in there.
Totally.
Because as George Lucas himself said, it's like poetry. It rhymes. It's going to come back. You're going to see these elements. But it also brings us some really, powerful moments in our theme of retreat. And
definitely.
We get it. I think I kind of identified a couple of key main areas, and we'll talk about each one of them as we go through our guided questions. But the first one I saw is Han getting Leia out of the base. They've kind of had this whole Sam and Diane, will they, won't they, just trying to get through the hallway, and I love, the famous argument where they stop in the hallway and they're having the argument and the guy walks between them, and they lean back and the guy keeps going. Well, of course, that guy gets made into one of the certain point of view Empire Strikes Back stories.
Right.
And I love that we do that kind of silly stuff with Star Wars. But, one aspect of retreat is, I'm fine. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do this and that. And then stuff starts to fall apart. She can't get to the transport. I'll get her out on the Falcon. That's one aspect of retreat. Of course, we have the rebels, fighting, trying to get the transports and get the people off. And so it's kind of a big, massive, military survival retreat. And then the other one that I kind of looked at was Luke in his battle, his speeder crashes, trying to take down some of these walkers, but he's forced into this retreat because he's crashed. He's stuck inside his, speeder trying to get out.
Right.
But like the moment, like he goes back for the grappling gun or whatever it is, the tow cable. And even as a kid watching that, like, he's got to get out of there. He's got to get it. And they build the tension, but there's that part of you that says, just run away, dummy. Like, go ahead and retreat. Don't, but he's a hero and he does the things that we all do.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're faced with a moment of retreat or the opportunity to retreat, do we retreat? Do we stand up? Do we, climb to the top of this big giant metal dinosaur and throw a bomb inside of it? So I identified those areas in particular, but what we're going to do, and I'm going to kind of be the guide and have the questions, because I know you were taking excellent notes. You sent me pictures earlier today. So the first question is, what is the text, our 20 or so minutes of this movie, what is the text telling us? What did you get out of the text? What is it telling you?
Well, I mean, oddly enough, as I was attending church this morning, there was a theme that the pastor was going through that I think fits well in this particular scenes that you gave me, basically. One of the things that I really got out of it is that often a desperate situation that causes you to want to retreat. It's a situation that you didn't know you were going to be in,
Right.
and in desperation you're retreating, but it really becomes a strong opportunity and a stage upon which you can regroup and rebound to then conquer whatever desperate situation you have seen yourself in. And so I really got that wisdom that the rebellion understands that in this situation they have no fight. They need to take this opportunity to retreat from this situation and regroup and rebound and come back and fight for another day. And and that's one of the main things I kind of got out of this. And also the interesting, not necessarily juxtaposition, but we see Luke and Leia and their resourcefulness in this situation. And it's cool in this quick 20 minutes to get to see the brother and the sister in different, aspects of the scene, but we're seeing their resourcefulness and their resolve in a desperate situation. Luke, loses, Dak, right? And he is in a situation where he has to figure out a way to take these walkers out. The armor's too thick. The shots aren't going to work. Let's use the grappling hooks. He's immediately resourceful in a situation. And then Leia, in the same aspect, she is in a situation where she feels like she wants to see as many people get off that planet as possible at her own detriment.
Right.
And so the integrity that she has in that situation is very much, to me, showing, these two are siblings. They're not going to give up in any situation that they're in. And so you gave me the best, again, 20 minutes. I'm anybody else that comes on these next several months is going to be jealous of this 20 minutes that you gave.
That's right. As they should be. Well, and I think you're exactly right. I love seeing the juxtaposition of those two making decisions, being in differing positions of leadership. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the fact that Luke Skywalker and Han Solo got to be pretty big deals pretty right away. Yes, Luke blew up the Death Star and Han flew in at the end and got Vader off his back, but pretty quick, honestly, as an adult going back and looking at the movie, they helped rescue Leia and get the plans to the rebellion in the first movie. And they're like, sure, go ahead and jump in one of these extra F-16s that we have, kid, that we don't know. You can fly with us too. Like, that would never happen unless this is like, Independence Day, end of the world type scenarios where, we're pressing crazy cousin Eddie and somebody else, the president, into flying jets. But they went, they kind of vouched for him somewhere along the way, or Leia said, sure, give him one. Of course, Biggs vouched for him too. He can do it. He's whatever. But it's interesting because then we catch them, in Empire, and they are heroes and they're generals and they're, in positions of leadership that we get to see fleshed out even more. That's even when they have to make these decisions. And I think that's an interesting point too with Leia. She's in there and, give the order, give the evacuation order. They're getting people off the base. And to bring up Last Jedi again, like, it rings very true of the beginning of Last Jedi when they're on, was it Takodana where they were? And, that retreat scene and making the decisions as a leader, the big part of that movie at the beginning is the battle with Poe and, the big dreadnought. Ultimately there was a retreat, but the retreat could have happened sooner and not lost all those bombers and all those pilots and all those, whatever. So you've got a leadership lesson in that. But I really like what you said. I love the juxtaposition of Luke and Leia doing those similar kinds of things and making these retreat choices simultaneously. We get it in real time.
And, and I think it's a theme that's throughout the all 9 films, 10 if you count Clone Wars. I mean, sometimes, in situations of retreat, there's wisdom in that. I mean, just to know that you don't have to throw all your eggs in one basket and try and win a battle that statistically you're not going to be able to win.
Right.
You know, the Empire, especially in this 20 minutes, they have the firepower.
Yes, they do.
They have what it's going to take to capture this base, and Leia knew that immediately. You know, and for her to have that wisdom in retreat is rare, and it's a good lesson for a kid to see for the first time. You know,
Right.
I hate to see my heroes retreating. Mom, Dad, why are they doing that? Well, let me explain this to you.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, and it gives you the opportunity to have that conversation with your kids or whatever, or you know, when you're young, learning that particular piece of wisdom that retreat is not necessarily a bad thing.
Correct. And retreat doesn't always mean defeat either. And I think that
exactly,
you know, that's a big part of it. And if I'm applying this particular canon lesson to my adult life, you know, we have plenty of opportunities where we face some version of making the decision to retreat. In fact, I love this. Framey just put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day.
Yeah.
You know, our decisions to retreat these days are not necessarily Imperial battle related. They may be Facebook flame war related. They may be
right.
engaging with a coworker. They may be engaging with a family member. It may be, you know, traffic, you know, whatever the thing is, we do have to make decisions in our life to retreat and decide, you know, it's the pick your battle thing in another way. You know, sometimes parenting, at what point on certain things do I go, you know what, this isn't the battle I'm here to fight today. Wear the weird shoes. We'll deal with something bigger later. You know, we have those moments. And so I think looking at our text and kind of comparing that to real life is seeing those same parallels, seeing when we're forced to make a decision. Sometimes we want to go ahead and go all in. We want to, you know, I think about years ago before Laura and I met, before we had kids, when I was still single, and I had a group of buddies around my age, and we were doing what single guys out of college did. We were playing church softball a couple nights a week and going to happy hour at Baumhauer's another night a week, and, you know, drinking beers and hanging out and just whatever. And this one guy, he was the fight guy. Like, he was the guy that wanted to get in fights and, you know, go talk trash. And one day we went somewhere and he found a bunch of people that were bigger than him and started running his mouth. And the other two guys and I were like, we're out of here. Like, we didn't come here for this. And, you know,
I'm picturing Joe Pesci for some reason.
Might not be far off. But, you know, later on, of course, he was cheesed off about it because, like, you didn't have my back. And I was like, no, that wasn't the moment to have your back, because you went looking for trouble that wasn't there. And, you know, having your back is self-defense, or, you know, it was this other thing. I'm not going to a bar to get in a fight because you want to run your mouth. Like, you know, there was a decision to retreat. It wasn't a difficult decision to retreat because, you know, you picked this fight yourself. You're going to have to solve that on your own. But on a more realistic day-to-day basis, we do have things that we have to decide. Is this where I'm going to engage? Is this, you know, is this the battle for this moment? Is this the big life decision to make now? Or do we retreat and hope we can figure out a way to deal with it and get better? And sometimes we engage, and sometimes we've had, you know, like we were talking off air, you know, we've had personal situations in my household over the course of the last week where we've made some big decisions, and they're the right decisions and they're good, and I feel good about them. But they're decisions that in the past we have retreated from, and we could have, if we wanted to, chosen to retreat again. But at some point, you know, you have to go with the facts you have, the support you have, you know, and go with whatever your ultimate guide is, whether it's the Force, whether it's God, whether, you know, the thing that helps you make those decisions. And so the themes of retreat, while we're talking about a silly space movie, ring very true in, you know, our everyday lives.
And I, you know, one other thing that I really got out of this in and around retreat, but, you know, something that Lucas does so well, and in this case, you know, with Kasdan collaborating with him when writing this script and telling this story, is he has no qualms about having heroes that have zero ego. You know, Han Solo has ego in some ways, but at the same time, even Han Solo in this situation can see the wisdom in retreat. So he's completely sloughing off any ego that he may have had in this situation. And he just knows that the thing for him to do in this moment is make sure that Leia gets off this rock safely. And I just love that the vulnerability of showing a hero character not having any ego is, I think, something that Lucas does better than anybody. There's a lot of Marvel movies out there that the heroes have a little bit too much ego. Tony Stark's a guy that has quite a bit of ego behind a lot of the decisions that he makes. And it's just refreshing for Lucas to create flawed heroes. And egoless heroes. I mean, it's not something that a lot of creators do.
Absolutely. And I've said many times, the reason I gravitated so much growing up and still do as far as favorite characters go were to people like Han Solo and Indiana Jones, because Han Solo and Indiana Jones had swagger, but they were flawed dudes. Like they were, they're going to just shoot the guy with the sword, or they're going to get out on the bridge and chop it in half, whether that's a good idea or not, because let's go and see what happens. I love in, I think it's in, what is it in Force Awakens when Han says, "I never think that far ahead," when they say, "Is it going to work?"
Or in every movie, yeah.
I never asked that question, or
right.
That's the lovability, and that's the real life nature of those kinds of characters and heroes. Is we can all envision ourselves, some version of, I hope it works, we're going to see, as opposed to the super, like you said, the super ego, whatever. Which you mentioned Iron Man, and I bring this up because it's fresh on my mind. As we've been watching the Marvel movies, we watched Age of Ultron tonight for Mom CU. And one of the things that we talked about was the way some of these characters have changed.
Yes.
And Tony Stark, this is when I feel like that evolution of Tony Stark really starts to hit a higher gear. Because after Avengers, after New York and Iron Man 3, we get PTSD Tony Stark. He's dealing with the flashbacks. But this is when it really hits him. And of course, it partially starts at the beginning when Wanda messes with his head when they're in that first castle and he sees all the Avengers dead and that whole, idea. His whole thing begins to transfer from, I've got to be the hero, because he already gets the chest thing taken out in 3. He's thinking about Pepper more. He's thinking about, he even makes the comment about Barton's farm. Maybe I should buy Pepper a farm and just, go away and not do that stuff. And so the misguided part of Age of Ultron is that he wants that suit of armor around the world. He wants to protect everybody without them having to be involved. What if they don't need us anymore? And that's an evolution from the Tony Stark at the beginning that stands up at the press conference and says, "I am Iron Man," standing in front of the Mandalorian, or the Mandarin in Iron Man 2 and saying, "Here's my address, come get me." That's a different Tony Stark. And we see that continue to develop going forward into, Infinity War and Endgame and those kinds of things. But it's that, that's a different thing. That's not as much about retreat. That's about, the differences in those characters. So we've looked at what our text is telling us. The next question is, what is the text asking of us?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that we touched on that a little bit. I mean, I think in a way, this particular scene or this particular 20 minutes is asking of us as a viewer to understand that in a desperate situation, these hero characters that we've come to love from A New Hope are in a situation where they need to retreat and rebound, and that's okay. And making us comfortable with that is some of the dialogue within the scene. I mean, obviously, the thing as the viewer we like to see is that it was an immediate decision. There wasn't any situation where they decided, okay, can we take this empire on? No, we know we're in this situation. We need to make this immediate situation to retreat. and come to fight another day. And I think that that's a lot of what this particular 20 minutes is telling us. And it even sort of evolves into the next scene, which, that's for somebody else to talk about, but it even evolves throughout the movie that, most of this movie, the rebellion is in quite a desperate situation.
That's right.
And
it's okay. It's okay for us to hit on some of the things that go ahead in the movie because they do relate to this topic, because you're exactly right. And part of what we've always, as we've gotten older, as we watch movies and as we look at, movie critiques or people who write academic articles or whatever, like part of the appeal and draw and what seems to set Empire apart is it ends with everything in shambles. It ends essentially in retreat. It ends with, our characters, Han Solo's gone and frozen in carbonite and we don't know where. Luke's recovering from getting his hand cut off. Lando's taking off in Han's clothes to go look for him. It's not the happy-go-lucky, everybody gets a story and a epilogue to go into the next movie. So retreat is really present throughout all of this. We've got, the chase through the asteroid field and the Exogorth. We've got, Luke on Dagobah training, but at some point he retreats from that training because he's scared for his friends. Right. And so he makes that decision to pull back from the thing that, the wise person is telling him to keep doing. And then, I'd say maybe the only other side of that is Luke doesn't retreat when he faces down Vader. He goes all in and, it blows up on him. And that's another lesson in things that we do. Sometimes we make the decision and say, this is what I need to do. And it isn't always the right one. So
now in his defense, he had the shock and awe of finding out that was his dad. There were some things going on. Yeah, there were some things going on. So I'll give him some slack on that.
That's right. But he charged headlong into there.
Right.
To find his friends and again against what Obi-Wan told him to do, what Yoda told him, stay here, training, sure. And those moments I love. I can't wait till we get to those moments because I love those conversations. And when Yoda says, he says, and risk losing, Han and Leia, if you honor what they fight for, he's having to wrestle with all of that same stuff in a different way.
Oh yeah. The script for Empire is probably my favorite. There's certainly moments in The Last Jedi that are really powerful as far as just the dialogue that people are saying to each other. But Empire, Kasdan wrote such a good script. So good.
We need Larry to, spread that love to some other people.
I know. And I don't want to downplay Irvin Kershner at all.
Not at all.
I think that Irvin Kershner, coming from the background he had, which was kind of more like drama, romance background, he was able to certainly infuse some of that romantic comedy. He was able to infuse a lot of those themes, and the choices that he made were prevalent throughout the movie also, and he's great as well. But just Kasdan's script is just so tight. It's just so tight. Love it.
So much good stuff in there.
Yeah.
So we've talked about what our text is telling us. We've talked about what our text is asking of us. The final question that we kind of engage with is, where does our text take us from here? Where does this idea of retreat take us as we go out into life, as we go out, as we venture more even into this movie? What are you seeing with where the text, what are the directions and next steps based on this?
Well, and I think especially within the film itself, we see our heroes go through a lot of difficult things. And that's really odd for a movie to do, first of all, is to see in one film our heroes go through so much from every different direction that you can imagine. You've got Vader taking out Han via carbonite because and sending him on with Boba Fett. You've got, of course, the fight between Luke and Vader, and there's just a lot of sorrow that our heroes experience in this film. But the theme retreat kind of like goes throughout the whole movie in a way, because at the end of it, we still have a glimmer of hope because they have taken the time to regroup. I love the R themes here. They've taken the time. Sorry, Southern Baptist in me.
Totally fine.
They've taken the time to regroup and rebound. And the rebound part is, let's hatch a plan. Here's where we're going to go next. And so even though they went through all of this stuff in the film, we've got that moment at the end where they're looking out, into space, and there's a theme of hope at the end because they've taken the time to rebound and hatch a plan on how to go get Han. And I just love, not that anybody that was watching Empire, obviously we all had the advantage of not having to wait for Return of the Jedi. We could just stick the VHS in right after we watched Empire. And that was, we were blessed in that way, the age that you and I are. And it's great to immediately see the plan in action when you stick Return of the Jedi in. And so heavy themes in Empire, but that glimmer of hope at the very end of the film. A plan is hatched. We know what we're going to do. And we have that glimmer of hope there.
That's right. Well, and I like what Framey put in the chat. It says, this is great. There's a Klingon saying, says, sorry for crossing streams, but it says, destroying an empire to win a war is no victory. And then they say it's good to have presence of mind to fall back and regroup, which is exactly what you said. You know, they are regrouping. They are coming up with a plan. And as, Lando and Chewie are heading out to go try and track Han down, we'll be in touch. We'll rendezvous. They've talked about it. They've got some steps. And we see that by the time we get to Jedi, because we see, Luke has a plan. R2 has the lightsaber. He's going to go in. Leia shows up as Boosh or Boosh, I think we call her. There's a plan in place. This is all a part of the plan. Stick close to Lando. There is a thing that is born out of the necessity of getting their friend back. I think for me, where does it take us? I think ultimately, and this is kind of what we talked about already, but it takes me to that place of mindfulness, to that place of considering the different places I'm going to go in my day-to-day life. Where do I need to retreat? Where do I need to press forward and advance? Where do I need to engage and stay plugged in? Where are those different avenues and paths that I need to go down in order to accomplish the mission or raise the kid or do the job at work or whatever the thing is? I guess ultimately for me, it's a call to mindfulness. It's a call to, weigh out those decisions instead of just doing what I normally do when I'm in traffic and yell and curse at everyone. Carpool lines. That's a great example. Is this the time to press my advantage and not let people in? Or is this my time to stay back and let a couple folks go? Because tomorrow I may be the guy that desperately wants to turn left when nobody will let me turn left or, whatever. So, for me, the thing that it calls us to is mindfulness, mindfulness and awareness of what are the choices in front of me, what are the plans and the regrouping that I need to do in order to go into that next stage, part of the battle or whatever.
No, I love that. Yeah, I totally love that.
What, I know you took great notes. You sent me a picture of him earlier. Is there anything else that we didn't hit on that stood out for you?
Let's see here. No, I think we touched on everything. I mean, I mentioned another R word, the resolve that Luke showed. I mean, and the resolve that really all of the heroes showed in the midst of this desperate situation was good to me. I mean, I tried to go with a lot of good R words.
I like just it. Because I like a theme.
Yeah,
you can take notes on it. You can fill in the blanks.
Exactly. I'm
totally there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally there for you.
And resolve is something that a major theme that the movie shows us that we can certainly take into our desperate situations that we encounter, because we are always, because of this flawed earth that we are on, we are always going to encounter desperate situations. And your reaction, another R word, your reaction to those desperate situations is really the most important thing. And showing resolve in those desperate situations, I think is a great theme that we can try and take from this.
Yeah. This isn't an R word, but Framey throws in another great one. Flexibility. Don't be so rigid in a plan that we can't change even when certain defeat becomes the obvious outcome. I think about flexibility and fluidity a lot as far as, that's what we all have to roll with the punches. We all have to, be able to be prepared to, in use of a terrible sitcom trope, pivot when we need to. But this has been a fabulous discussion, and I love that we got to talk about such a huge chunk of, again, one of my favorite movies of all time. And, even watching it had me thinking about the documentaries that they did when they did the special edition, because the best parts of the special editions are the Haas scenes where they were able to take out, like, seeing through the edge of the canopy and whitening that snow a little bit more. But I was just sitting there going, now I need to go back and watch that. Like, it just triggers these memories of all the things I love about Empire so much. But I love the idea of retreat, and it's kind of a weird thing to say, is like, "Ooh, I like that," but great. It's very real for where we are in our everyday lives. And so, as we wrap up this study, I hope that we're able to carry some of these lessons that we've learned and as we've seen in Star Wars forward. And we're going to wrap up from that. Tell everybody, first and foremost, where they can find you. You're always active online. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I mostly hang out on Twitter right there at the Michael Nipp. Mostly it's talking about movies. Today it was talking about how awesome it was that the Dallas Cowboys won. So, I mean, you can find me over there on Twitter. The same with the Deucecast. Most of where we hang out with is on Twitter. We do, of course, have a Facebook page as well. And the podcast itself, although movie themed, we end up talking about all kinds of crazy stuff, as you do with a podcast that has somehow been going on for over 10 years.
So
and if you'll allow me,
in fact, I even prepared a little something for you here.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. That looks great. We are celebrating, and that's really all it's going to be. It's not going to have any structure to it whatsoever, but a celebration of a 500th episode. I'm hearing that that's kind of a big deal in the podcasting
a big deal
realm. And so I think it's worth a celebration. So what we're going to do, it's something that we definitely don't do often on the actual Deucecast movie show. We usually save this space for the Deucecast Extra, which is our TV wing. But the Deucecast movie show is going to go live on YouTube 7:00 Friday, September 24th. So would love you guys, even if you've never heard the show, come celebrate and see some of the faces that have been a part of helping us get to 500. Because that's the thing that I have found in the podcasting community in general, is that you can't do it alone, and you never want to try and do it alone. And it's a lot more fun doing it with other people. Nick, I got to meet you this year, and I have had a lot of fun with the stuff that we've got to do together. This included, obviously. But it's been, and I'm not even in the Star Wars podcasting community, but I feel very welcome in that community whenever I dip my toe in that water. And that's something that the Deucecast movie show, there are 5,000 movie podcasts, just as there are 5,000 Star Wars podcasts. I mean, there's no limit to the number of podcasts that you can have, but we just have so much fun on the show, and we want to celebrate that and do something that we've really never done that much, which is just have a party on YouTube, basically. And we're just giving the opportunity, we have a Discord server, and so we're giving the opportunity to a lot of our listeners that have been with us from the beginning to come on and actually see their faces and have a quick conversation about a movie they love or something like that. I mean, it's going to be very loosey-goosey. And Nick, I know you're going to be on there, and I really appreciate you volunteering to help.
I'm looking forward to it. I've got my own little fun something that I think I'm going to do on Friday night just to contribute to the chaos and the whatever. But that's a huge accomplishment. And Framey said it in the chat. Congratulations on the first 5 centuries.
I know, right? It just means we're really old.
Well, and like you said, you've been doing a podcast for 10 years, which that's not insignificant in and of itself, because podcasting 10 years ago is not what podcasting was or is now.
Yeah,
we're talking about 2011. That was a big. It was not as accessible. It was not as easy. Right. And you've been doing it consistently for 10 years and doing it with something you love. And there's other movie podcasts, but my thing, and I think y'all would probably agree with this too. I say this probably every week, when we started this podcast and Laura asked me, who do you think is going to listen to it? The conversation that I had with her was, I don't care. Because if Steve and I get a chance to talk about Star Wars, that I'm happy. If nobody listens, I've gotten to talk with somebody I like about something else that I like, and y'all do that.
That's totally why we started.
I've listened to a bunch of the Deucecast, and it's you, and it's Dave, and it's Earl, and you do top 5 lists, and you bring guests on, and you do, movie heroes, remembrances, movies that take you back to the summer, decades. Like, you've done it all. In fact, I keep trying to come up with ideas of new things that y'all can do just so I have an excuse to come be on. And you're like, we did that once, but we could probably do it again.
We could do it again.
You're just nice. But it's a significant accomplishment, not only to do 10 years, but to do 500 episodes. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to encourage all of our listeners to check it out. Follow Michael on Twitter and follow Deucecast on Twitter. Let me get those back up on the screen. Check them out, and you'll be able to catch them live on YouTube Friday night and see what it's all about and see some of the fun. Sometimes the best streams are the ones that just turn it on and decide to go and see what happens. And so,
it's going to be chaotic.
Y'all are going to have a bunch of fun being able to, talk and go back through memories. And like you said, have some of those listeners on who have been with y'all for a really long time to share a memory or share a movie or whatever it is. So that's fantastic. I'm so excited for you guys, and I'm excited to get to be just a little part of that on Friday night as well. Going forward from here, I love all of our listeners. Thank y'all so much for being a part of Podcast of the Wheels, for watching us, for listening to us. If you are listening on podcast and you want to check out the video stream, it is always on youtube.com/Podcast of the Wheels. We'd love for you to like and subscribe there. Catch us when we go live every Sunday night. But if you listen on the audio while you're driving during the week, that's cool too. We try to make it accessible both ways. And we're going to wrap this up, but I want y'all to look forward to Potathon in November. That's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to Deucecast 500 this Friday. And we will be together again next weekend, and we will dig into our next topic, which I believe is discipline. And we have an exciting guest. It's my friend Mari Sterling. Mari was Max on all of the seasons of Homeland on Showtime, which was a big deal TV show. Lives out in LA. He is also the voice of Mail Smuggler in the Star Wars The Old Republic video games. So Mari has done some Star Wars. He's been in Deadwood. He's been in he's been in a bunch of stuff. You've seen him, but he was Max in Homeland. That was one of his big ones. So I'm excited to talk to him because he is a martial artist as well. One of his hobbies is martial arts. So we're going to talk about discipline. We're going to talk about Luke getting to Dagobah, training, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be a great episode. And I look forward to seeing y'all. And until we are together again next time, may the Force be with you always.